Ken Coleman, Ramsey personality, is here on KCMO Talk Radio. Ken, what about you as you've been able to digest this jobs report? What do you make of it?
Yeah, well, Joe is padding the stats a little bit. I mean, I told Neil Cavuto this the other day. I kind of shocked Cavuto. He was all into the massive supposed, let's say, a better performance. Well, here's the deal. As you just pointed out to your audience, when 25% or just shy of 25% of the jobs added are government jobs, you can't take that as hey, the economy's just trucking right along adding jobs. So government jobs are not a sign that the economy's healthy. Small businesses have and always will be the greatest indicator of the jobs part of the economy. So it wasn't that great. Now, buried in all of this stuff, and I don't want to get too wonky, Pete, but one of the things that wasn't so exciting, and it's not alarming, but you got to keep an eye on it, is the job participation rate of the 25 to 54 demographic. And what that means is when you see that tick down, and if it were to consistently tick down, it was off 0.5%, meaning that just weren't as many people working in that demographic. They dropped off by 0.5%. Sometimes that can be a sign of a recession because it's not about the size of the number. It's just that the number changes in a negative way. So I still think we're in the same boat we've been in, which is who knows which way this is going to go. It's a bit of a house of cards that our feckless Fed chair has built for us. And so depending on what businesses are going to do based on interest rates, that has a lot to do with what we'll see in 2024. So the big question, Pete, I have for you today is, will the Fed chair help Joe Biden and the Democratic Party by maybe easing or even dropping rates a little bit in an election year?
I know they're hesitant to, Ken, but I think he will. I just don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be in March. I think it's going to come over the summer. What about you? Yeah,
it's funny. We've not talked about this, folks. We are not colluding this morning. I would agree with that. I think he is trying to. Let's see if we have a soft landing on inflation, and really we're in a bit of stagflation right now. Is what's kind of going on. So I would agree. I think the summertime is when you might see it, and that's a perfect time, by the way. Because the American people in general aren't focused on the election. The broader scale of people who vote aren't paying attention until you get into that third quarter.
Yes, and if they have this perception through the media, hey, rates are coming down, economy's improving. I mean, that's Goose and the big guy there in the White House going into his reelection bid. That's
funny term you used there. He might enjoy that. He's famous for slipping up behind people.
He's been called worse, but it's a Monday, and I'm trying to be a nice guy, Ken.
You are.
Let me ask you this, too, about that report. The full-time jobs are down 1.5 million. Part-time jobs are up 762,000, and the number of people with multiple jobs is over 8 million for the first time ever. Is that a concern, or is that just a changing economy where people are doing side hustles and side businesses and doing more thing than just the traditional 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think it's both. And what I mean by that is it is a concern on the one hand because people are in debt and they're living above their means and inflation is real. And you combine those two factors, there are a lot of people who have to work that second or third job just to have some margin. So, of course, that's concerning. But again, the American people themselves can dig themselves out of that. That's what we do at Ramsey Solutions. So, good on you if you're working, but let's get out of it. Let's not work to 2 and 3 jobs just to stay afloat. Now, the other part is it's just a new world we're in, and I'll call it, for lack of a better phrase, the new work way.
Yes.
I think you're seeing a lot of companies that got burned during the Great Resignation, and they're also now a little hesitant to staff back up. And I think you're seeing more of the gig economy, freelancing, where companies are going, I can get the work done, but I'm not having to pay full-time employee benefits, and I can keep my costs a little bit lower. So I think you've nailed it there. I think that's a big part of the new way we work.
Mm-hmm. Ken Coleman, his show, by the way, the Ken Coleman Show, you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to find it there. I know you've had a few episodes that have dropped here in the new year, Ken, and I started listening to them in the last few days. And it's topics that people are thinking about right now, like, new year, new job, how to navigate the market, the job market right now. What is going to be different in 2024 about the job market and the way that people need to think about how they're navigating it?
Well, this is a bit of a prediction, so I could be wrong, but I think you're going to hear the 4-day work week conversation pretty regularly, and I think you're going to see it tested in a lot of different places. I think it's here, and I think that's going to be a bit of a trend. I don't know when in 2024, and it may not happen, but I think it's now going to become at least something talked about and tested at a much higher rate than we've heard it before.
But listen, it doesn't work for me. It probably doesn't work for what you do. But is it going to be based on whether or not it works for that industry? Like, I get it for nurses, for cops, for firefighters, but it can't work for, like, what we do, I can't imagine.
No, and I think that's a very good point. I do think it's going to be industry specific, and I also think it's going to be leader specific. And what I mean by that is it's going to be companies that have the right kind of leadership, that can test things, be nimble, can learn, can listen to their team, and figure out how to do it. And then I think, obviously, it's going to be industry specific in that some industries lend itself to where it can work. So I think that's going to be interesting. Here's something that's really interesting about it. It's not buried in the news, but you can find it. It's not widely talked about, but a lot of school districts are going this direction to try to retain and recruit teachers to a 4-day school week. So that is already being implemented around the country in certain places. So I just think you're going to see these kind of things happen as we move forward.
And you're right, the schools could then drive the job market, because then the potential employee could say, hey, I need a 4-day work week because my kid is off on Mondays or my kid is off on Fridays, right? Like, that could actually expedite this in the labor market potentially.
Yes, that's a very good point. I mean, it's just everything changed from the pandemic. The flexibility in the form of remote work is here to stay. It was already here, but I think it just got kerosene poured on top of it. And so I look to see those kind of changes in the workplace. There's no question about it. I mean, you're still going to see hybrid work as the dominant model, some in the office, some outside. I think that's the now. That's not the future. I think that's the dominant model. And then what does it look like as far as rhythm and schedule? That remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be a big trend. I really do.
Yeah. All right. Ken, before we let you go, I know that you're going to Houston tonight. You're a Michigan man. Of course, Michigan's taking on Washington in the national championship for college football. When are you hitting the road, or are you already down there in Houston?
My friend, I am calling you from I found a little office in the hotel. I talked my way in and said, I need a quiet space to talk to Pete Mundo. And I said, immediately. So I'm here in Houston. I got in yesterday afternoon. I'm here to support my boys. It's a once-in-a-lifetime situation if you look at Michigan's history, so I had to get here. So I'm here. I will tell you, Pete, we're winning the streets. I don't know what that means for tonight's game, but there's more Michigan fans on the streets than there are Huskies.
Well, I'm not surprised by that. You Michigan grads, I mean, y'all make a ton of money, and, you keep it in the family, so to speak. You're all really smart. So I'm not surprised you guys were able to get yourselves down there. Washington, it's a good school too, but it's not Michigan. So you guys, now here's the question. Is Harbaugh going to be coaching there in 2024? That's what I want to know.
Well, this is fun. I cannot reveal my source, but off air, Pete, we've got to connect today, because you're not going to believe the night I had last night, the people I was talking to. I can tell you from inside Harbaugh's camp, and I'm not making this up,
okay.
He does not know what he's going to do. And all the rumors out there about the contract at Michigan saying this, that he can't talk to an NFL team, all of that's garbage. He has not made up his mind. He's singularly focused on the game. And I would tell you, based on what I heard, I think it comes down to which NFL team offers. And I think if it's an NFL team that's the right situation for him, I think he's probably going to take it. But I also believe he could easily come right back to Michigan if he doesn't get the offer that he thinks makes sense. So I think it's 50-50.
Wow.
After what I heard last night.
All right. Well, we'll be watching. Hey, I'm going to be rooting for Michigan because Jim Harbaugh's wife, Sarah, is from the Kansas City area. I believe she's from Belton, Missouri.
Who I spent time with last night. She and her brother, John Fearborn, are big Kansas City folks. So spent time with them last night and had a lot of fun talking to her, meeting her. What a classy lady. Are you not going to ask me a prediction on the game, Pete?
Well, I'm gonna get there. I had to get the Kansas City tie-in first. We got to get the local tie-in here and root for Sarah Harbaugh as much as anybody else. So she's a pleasant lady, though. Very nice.
She represents Kansas City as well as anybody on the planet. Salt of the earth. She's the youngest of 11 kids, and as you pointed out, from Kansas City.
Wow. Okay. All right, Ken. Now we put it on the silver platter for you. Knock it out of the park. Give me a prediction, and no matter what, I'm going to play this back tomorrow morning. So what do you got for me?
All right, so I'm going to set it up quickly. We've got Michigan's defense is one of the best in the country. As you saw, we just absolutely rattled and harassed Alabama's quarterback. Washington has not played anyone with a pass defense better than 55th or 56th in the country. So while they're the high-flying pass offense, they haven't played anybody that has a stout defense. And Washington's defense is putrid. I chose that word specifically. Mm-hmm. So you add all that up, I think Michigan wins by 10-plus points. I don't think Washington can stop our run game, and that's bad news when you got Blake the Great running the ball. I think J.J. has a good game, maybe great. I think Michigan wins. Their defense is too much for the Huskies.
Give me a score. 10 points, you said, but give me a score.
31-21.
I like that. All right, so we're getting a spread that is also being covered by those Wolverines tonight, which is sitting at 4.5. Ken likes it by a big margin, by the way. Hey, have a great time tonight, Ken. If you see Sarah Harbaugh, tell her that we're all rooting for her in Kansas City. At least some of us are, I imagine. And we'll talk to you soon, my friend. We appreciate it. Safe travels back home.
All right, brother. Thanks for having me.
That is Ken Coleman, host of The Ken Coleman Show. Be sure to find that wherever you get your podcasts. And you also will hear him, of course, on The Ramsey Show, airing 3 to 5 weekdays on KCMO.